Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up was released in 2008 for both Nintendo Wii and PlayStation 2. It was intended to be a celebration of the Turtles' 25th anniversary and thus bears no association to any prior incarnation of TMNT, which sounds like a good idea in concept, but the end result is a game that plays much like another Wii brawler and skimps on the celebration part. Now, years ago, we looked at the Wii version of Smash Up, and it's a fine game for what it is. And today we're looking at the PS2 version of Smash Up because I just feel like it. Also, it's considered economically sound to recycle an old review and make subtle changes to the script so that it reflects this other version that plays pretty much the same way, but don't worry, there's a couple differences here and there that's worth mentioning, I guess, so let's go. In any event, if you didn't own a Nintendo console of any kind and stuck with the PlayStation 2 out of some semblance of loyalty or because the games were really cheap at the time, but you really wanted to sample that Super Smash Bros. Stuff for whatever reason, then you had a nice little alternative in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up. Much like the Wii version, it too came with a little comic book that basically takes the cutscenes from the game's arcade mode and turned them into paper printouts. It's a nice bonus, even if I don't care for the artwork. TMNT Smash Up comprises several modes of play, including an arcade mode that contains a story, survival mode, versus mode, a mission mode, and some bonus rounds you could participate in. As you play the game, you'll unlock hidden characters, costume stages, and other things, so there's quite a bit to do here to keep you busy. There's no online play in this PS2 version, though mind you nowadays even the Wii version is lacking the online play. However, if you have one of those multi-tap things, you could play with 7 other people in mindless smash-up fun in either the tournament or the swap mode. Mind you, the matches themselves are still 4 players max. However, when one player is defeated, another joins in and continues the mayhem. I've never actually tried this since I don't have a multi-tap laying around, but I'd imagine that'd be quite a bit of fun, I suppose. Anyways, moving on. Smash Up's character roster is somewhat limited for the most part, with only 12 playable characters to choose from. The PlayStation 2 version lacks Fugitoid and the 3 rabid bastards that occupied the Wii version's character slots that could have gone to better, more worthwhile legacy characters, but I've already made a big stink out of that years ago, so I won't retread old territory here. Suffice it to say, you got the 4 turtles, you got Splinter, Casey, April, Karai, Shredder, a Foot Ninja, a Ultraminator, and Night Watcher, Raphael's costumed alter ego from the 2007 CGI feature film, and that's about it. Not much to go on, especially if you are a fan of the more ancient incarnations of the Turtles, and now that I think about it, this version is also missing the underground stage that had the Technodrome in it. Oh well. At face value, Smash Up is essentially Super Smash Bros. With Ninja Turtles characters. This is evident by the fact that some of the folks who worked on this game also worked on Super Smash Bros. Brawl. This is also obviously evident by the game's title, Smash Up. Fights play out as they did in Smash Bros. A number of fighters bounce around the level beating the crap out of each other, and occasionally picking up weapons and power-ups to increase their chances of survival. The control layout is more or less the same between the two games. Each fighter has a weak and a strong attack, and a number of special attacks that can be performed by slamming the stick in a direction in conjunction with a button. Although in the grand scheme of things, a lot of these fighters have fairly similar movesets, so diversity is somewhat lacking. Victory is attained either by knockout or ring out. None of that Smash Bros. Stuff where you have to sustain up to 500% or whatever of damage to the enemy before being able to knock them off the field. Here, the fighters have health meters and sometimes multiple lives depending on the condition of the fight. They sustain damage, they lose health, they eventually perish or exhaust a life, they run out of lives, they lose. For better or worse, Smash Up is a nice little derivative of the successful Smash Bros. Formula, but not much else beyond that. It feels very much similar to that other game that you could easily jump between the two titles and never miss a beat. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because even without having played the other game, Smash Up offers a nice, simple, straightforward combat engine that is easy to understand, and yet can have its moments of complexity in terms of combos, special weapons, and making use of whatever environmental hazards are apparent. The stages themselves are as much of a threat as the fighters. With a couple exceptions, there never comes a point where you can stand still because the stage is fairly active. It's a nice bit that keeps fights moving, not stagnate for long periods of time. The visual stylings of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up is primarily based on the 2007 CGI-based film TMNT, or in the case of certain characters, the 2003 animated series. And the animated comic sequences were drawn by TMNT veteran Jim Lawson, who also did the artwork for the then current Volume 4 of the original Mirage published comic book, which I wasn't a big fan of both in terms of story and the art direction, if you will. This is more of a personal preference, however. If you enjoyed the guy's work in that book, the artwork here is on par with that, even if the character designs doesn't quite jive with those of the actual gameplay content. The other thing I wasn't a big fan of was the visual stylings based on that CG movie. I always thought the character models were rather awkward looking and bland, various stages were drab and unappealing. And what is the deal with this alternate Karai costume where she's all gold? Is that something I'm missing here, or is it a faulty color scheme? I don't know. But on the other hand, performance-wise, it's not too bad. The stages might not look like much, but at least there's stuff going on. The action runs at a rather smooth pace with some occasional dips of slowdown here and there, but nothing too distracting. And you even have little auras to tell where your characters are if everything is zoomed out and tiny, which is nice at least. Though if this is a bit distracting, you could always turn them off, no problem.
The voiceover work is pretty solid for what's there, especially with the flaky story attached to the game's arcade mode. It's not overall great stuff, but good enough for what it is, and at least helps to move the story along if nothing else. The soundtrack's a mixed bag, mostly a meager offering of generic musical cues, nothing particularly special. I suppose licensing issues and other factors would have prevented the inclusion of some classic Turtles songs from yesteryear, but the musical bits that they did create is rather ho-hum, rather forgettable, bland, drab, uninteresting, meh. That's all I got.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up wasn't the finest celebration of a milestone anniversary, and we're long since over that hurdle now, but the game itself is pretty okay. Sure, it's a Smash Brothers inspired thing, but it's a fairly competently executed Smash Brothers inspired thing, and a game of this style on PlayStation 2 is nice for those who wanted a sample of this style without having to plant a foot in the evil Nintendo Empire or some other bullshit analogy you wish to toss in there. The fighting's fairly solid, it makes for a nice multiplayer thing, and it's fairly simple to get into. Could Smash Up offer a bit more for its package? Possibly, and I even think this with the Wii version, which had slightly more stuff, but what's there is still good enough for a cheapo purchase, and if you like Turtles and you like Smash, then Smash Up provides a nice amalgamation of those two properties in a somewhat pleasing package. It's perfectly acceptable smashing fun. Because we really needed to end this video with a lame line like that. The end. Good night.